Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force podcast. My name is Rachael Paskvan, and I am your host. And today I am so excited because I get to be joined by TEDx speaker, author, nonprofit founder, and advocate for redefining success beyond business, Peggy Sullivan. Today, we're going to be talking about her time in poverty, the hustle culture, which is so prevalent to so many of us, and especially my millennial listeners out there, and how we can reclaim joy through intentional self-care. So thank you so much for being here, Peggy. I'm really excited to talk about this.
Well, back at you.
So tell the audience just a little bit about your background and, how you got into this.
Absolutely. I spent about 25 years in corporate America, and it was amazing. And I had a high-powered job, and I was traveling the world and making good money until I had a series of wake-up calls. One in particular where I actually came home from work. I was exhausted. I was hungry. So I'm looking in the cupboards to find anything to eat. I grabbed these pistachio nuts. I chomped them down. I feel something pulling at my leg. I look down. It's my cat, Dazzle. I feed him. I fall asleep on the couch, and I'm like, oh. And then I hear this gagging noise, and I look up, and it's my cat throwing up pistachio nuts. And I look down and I'm like, I have remnants of cat food in my hand. I was in such a burnt out haze. I just ate cat food for dinner and I didn't even realize it. And for me, that just started me on this path that we didn't call it burnout back then, but I was burnt out. I was just in this mindless haze doing and not thinking. And then a whole series of other things kind of unfortunate happened. And I realized this has got to change. So I started a nonprofit and I interviewed thousands of people asking them, what's your biggest challenge in life? And what I learned was that people don't have time for what's important. And I used to call it busyness, but I learned that everybody loves being busy, but nobody likes time poverty. So I started to talk about it in terms of time poverty, not having time for what's important. And I developed this 3-step busy busting process that works with most organizations and most people. I've got a 97% rate of giving people back 5 to 7 hours in their week to find time for things that are really meaningful for them. So it's a great system. And oh, by the way, my name is Peggy and I am a busyness addict in recovery. So the system, it was designed for me because I was tired of living on this hamster wheel going round and round and round. No fun.
Well, I feel like we glamorize being busy so much and it becomes a badge of honor to be like, oh, how are you doing? Oh my God, I'm so busy. Like I have this going on and this going on. And if you're unable to say like, well, I'm doing all of these things instead of just like, oh, life's good. We can't just like simply end it at that kind of statement. There always has to be a more and more and more. Why do you think we've glamorized being busy in our society?
Well, our hustle society tells us when you're busy, you're important. And you think about it like that doctor, you can't get in to see him for 6 months. He must be really good. He's worth the 6-month wait, right?
Yeah.
And like I got a neighbor, he leaves at 7 a.m., doesn't get dinner with his kids, comes home at 7:30, but he's a rock star. He's been promoted 3 times in the last 7 years. And you just don't think about the downside. You think about the accomplishments and where you're going to go. And our hustle society rewards us, for busyness. And we don't think about what it and how it affects us, but also how it impacts everybody around us. Because let's face it, our family, our friends, our colleagues, when we're stressed, when we're busy, when we don't have time for human interaction, everything starts to fall down.
Yeah. And what are some of the consequences, like besides the falling down, that you've seen or experienced from, just constantly running on fumes?
Yeah, well, I can speak for myself, and I had a stress related heart attack. I had my husband of 18 years leave me, basically saying, sorry, I don't know you anymore. You're not spending enough time with me. And, there's just a lot of things, but, I'll share with you an example. A friend of mine, Lucy. Lucy has a newborn. She's actually about 6 months old. And one day her sitter called in sick. And Lucy was like, I have to work. I have important calls today. So she thought, no problem. I'm going to multitask my way through the day. And so she put the baby on her lap and she got this beautiful picture perfect moment. And it wasn't easy, but she got through the day. And the next day she went to work and she had hundreds of emails and she's like, what's going on? Almost every customer. She realized she sent out an invoice for $11,000 that was supposed to be 1,100. So what happens when we're busy and we multitask is it actually takes us 2.5 times longer and we make 3.5 times more mistakes. So our work gets sloppy. We get less innovative. We have less time to interact and connect with real people, and there are lots of busy traps that we get pulled into. The other day, I was like into an Excel spreadsheet. And you got to remember, I didn't grow up with Excel. So for me, I was like moving and grooving and what if formulas and scenarios. And I was pretty darn proud of myself, but I was focused. And then I hear this knock on the door and it's my husband. I think, oh my God, it's got to be important. But the door's shut. No, I'm going to open it. I'm going to answer it. So I'm like, yes, dear, what's going on? What do you need? And he looks at me and he says, we are out of ketchup. I thought to myself, I was just doing really focused, important work. And you interrupted me to tell me that we're going to have burgerless hamburgers today. Like, I really care about that. So I shoo him out of my office. I go to get back into this Excel spreadsheet, and I cannot remember where I left off, what the what if formula was, what scenarios I was looking to create. It took me 17 minutes. So there's so many downsides to hustling and doing multiple things at once and letting interruptions in and doom scrolling and all the things that we've gotten so used to. It's like we have FOMO. We want to be a part of everything. But the reality is we need to figure out what's important, and that's what we need to focus on.
I mean, you say busy isn't better. So how can someone begin to believe that and really live in that space?
Well, that's why I developed a framework, because I know for me, it was really hard. And by the way, biologically, we get a dopamine hit every time we get something done, whether it's something important or we just took a trash bag out to the garbage can. It doesn't have to be something important, but we get a hit of dopamine. So we do it again and again and again. And that's why busyness is so addictive. So what we can do differently, I tell people, follow the process because the process works. It worked for me. But the process is step one, subtract low value transactions. So we all get stuck in these busy traps that just really keep us from doing what we should be doing. Maybe there's too many meetings. 83% of workers spend a third of their time in meetings. And guess what? Only a third of them are productive. So that means how many hours are we spending unproductively? That's like crazy. And the list goes on and on. The email rabbit hole can be pulling us down, letting interruptions in. There's just not exercising. There's the things we don't even think about.
Yeah.
You ever have a really late night or you can't fall asleep? You're so stressed out. And then you go to work the next day and you're like tired. So you can't think.
It's like Groundhog's Day. You're just doing more and trying to fit it in. And there's not enough hours in the day. And I mean, I tell so many people that the time is your great equalizer. You can't buy more of it. You can't barter more of it. You like Warren Buffett and Oprah Winfrey have the same hours in a day that I do. So it's all about how you either maximize your time and how you want to spend it, because you're not going to get any more. There is no way to do that.
Yeah. And the reality is these busy traps are habitual. We didn't even know we're doing it. I worked with some industrial psychologists and some HR people to develop this 3-minute survey that identifies low value activity. So if anybody wants to, take a peek and what to do about your low value activities, I call it the Busy Barometer, and it's on my website, peggysullivanspeaker.com. So you can take that and it will identify what are the things that you're doing that keep you from what's important. Most people, like I said, they get back a couple of hours in their day.
Yeah.
So that leads us to step 2. I wrote my first book about happiness, and I wrote it for my mother because she was very young and she had pancreatic cancer. And one day I walked into her room, and while she had always been kind of despondent, negative, unhappy, one day she was smiling. It was 3 days before she died and nothing was changing. She was still terminal. And she looked at me and she says, I'm going to teach you something that I just learned, and I wish I learned it years ago. So what's that, Mom? She said, happiness is your responsibility. And so I thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to research this happiness thing. And what I learned was when we're happy, not only does our brain light up, but it sends these neurotransmitters to us, letting us focus. We can fight off chronic disease. We're more charismatic. We have more energy. I mean, the list goes on. And actually, happy people live longer, on average, about 3 to 5 years longer. So happiness is a superpower. But the problem with most people is we think about happiness as a destination, a place. I will be happy when I get the new job. I will be happy when I get pregnant, when I get a new house. It's just, when I go on vacation. But that's too hard because too many things out of our control. So I push people to celebrate things and have happiness rituals. 3 to 5 minutes of wow, light me up, have fun. And it can be anything from a dance party. I'm big on 6:30 a.m. dance parties with my pink slippers. My husband hates them because I wake him up, but hey, it gets me going. It makes me happy. And I have a burst of adrenaline. Or maybe it's midday, 11 a.m., no matter where in the world Peggy Sullivan is. I eat a couple of pieces of dark chocolate. And I have to tell you, it's like pushing the reset button. So step 2 is about creating these micro moments that I call happiness rituals. And only a couple of them work. I used to work at United Healthcare, and I worked in customer service, and I headed up a large department. And I was thinking when I started there, what can I do to improve, the lives of these people? How can I make a very hard job easier? So we decided to check out these happiness rituals at the organization. And we did things like cubicle dance parties. We made cards for nursing homes. We sang happy birthday. We just did all this really fun stuff for 8 minutes a day, 4 minutes, 2 times. And here's the bottom line. Employee engagement went up, but so did their most important metrics, went up 33% in 6 weeks. So, when you take a moment to smell the roses, everything changes.
I mean, 4 minutes times 8 minutes is really nothing in the grand scheme of the 24 hours that you have in a day. And I mean, for those of us who are, super A-typed and like things scheduled, do you think it helps to just schedule in those times? So something to look forward to and something to also be able to know that we have to do this because we schedule it in?
Yeah, I mean, you're so right. I schedule in my happiness rituals during my workday, 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock, just when I need that energy burst, that feel good thing. And the thing of it is they can be small, small, small things. I usually bring them when I speak. I'm a speaker. And
Yeah.
many times I'll just have people stand up, shake out, and just say something as simple as, I got this. And it just feels so empowering. I mean, it can be something as simple as a mantra.
I mean, and I love that. Something so simple that you can just repeat each day and that you can kind of like bring in to shift your perspective. And I mean, it's a little bit about self care at the end of the day. And you and I have spoken about self care and why self care is not selfish, but actually a success strategy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I'd like to give an example. I have a
Yeah.
neighbor who is about 5 houses down, and she's a single mom, and she's a VP at a financial international bank. So she's got a really big job, and she's got 3 kids under the age of 10. So one day her daughter calls me up and says, Mommy's laying on the floor. And I'm like hysterical. I'm like, Mommy's laying on the floor. I rush over
Mm.
there. And she's laying on the floor with her head propped up on laundry. And what happened was that she came home from work, a normal day. She put her kids in front of TV so she could do some laundry because nobody had socks that morning. And she tripped over the laundry because there's 3 weeks sitting there, and she just laid there and didn't get up. And I'm like, what is going on? And she says, it feels hopeless. The self-care thing feels
Yeah.
hopeless. I'm like, well, you've got 5 minutes, 5 minutes for tomorrow. And she's like, I got 5 minutes. I said, get up and have a cup of coffee before your kids get up. See how that works out. She does that. She feels calmer. She goes to work. Chaos and heck breaks loose. I'm like, do you take a lunch? She says, never. I said, what would happen if you just took 15 minutes? You're always making those PBJ sandwiches for your kids. Make one for you and go outside and feel the sun on her face. She's like, holy cow. 10 minutes a day. She did that. Self-care in small bites. Nothing major, nothing going to the gym, trying something crazy, just 2 little things. And she's like, oh my God, what a difference that made. And then finally she comes to me and she's like, oh my God, Peggy, I can't sleep. The days are great, but I can't sleep. And I'm like, well, what do you do at night? She's like, I look at my things to do list. Well, I'm like, well, duh, that kind of stresses you out. Why don't you
Yeah.
think about something more relaxing, something more satiating? So she started to count what she was grateful for and keep a gratitude journal. I think my point in saying that long story is because you can find time for self-care in micro moments that have macro results.
Well, and then you could habit stack also, and which is very trendy right now. But being able to do that and then add on more time to things, like once you see the benefit, I would think of what these micro moments are doing for you, not just in like your day to day, but your overall life scale, that then you're going to want to add in more or extend the time or make that time to be able to really, maybe get a massage once a week or just an hour of something that's self-care for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the third and final step, which is just as important as the first two that I always tell people, is figuring out what to say yes and what to say no to. And for me, it's about values management. We all have decided somewhere along the line that time management is the holy grail, but 94% of people do not have time for what's important to them. So this time management thing isn't working. So how can we decide what we say yes and no to so we have more meaning in our life? One of the things that millennials, Gen Xers, Gen Ys desperately are seeking, more meaning at work. And the way to do that is just to get in touch with your values. What are your core values? And when you make yes or no decisions based on your core values, you don't get to the end of the day saying, I wasted time. You said yes because it was something that aligned with your core values. Maybe it was growth. Maybe it was energy management, whatever, and I usually tell people, you don't know what your values are, steal mine. It took me a long time to figure out which ones are most important. And for me, they are energy management, always being up, being in a good mood, and self-care goes in there big time. Human connection. We need other people in our lives and we need to connect. Growth. My dad always used to say, Toots, a day without learning something is a lost opportunity. And then the last one and the final one is authenticity, which is really about not stepping into your personal truth, but being more open-minded to everybody around us because we're better together. So for me, those 4 values, every time I make a decision on what to do, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, it fills and feeds one of those 4 values, which makes me really understand, do I need to attend to that meeting? Do I need to put this on my to-do list?
Really, reevaluating like where you want to make things of importance. So you founded a nonprofit. Can you tell us about the mission of that and how it supports the conversation we're having about time and joy and fulfillment?
Yeah, absolutely. I started She Can about 9 years ago, and I wanted to support women in helping them step into their power, really finding their sweet spot. So I kept on asking the question to thousands of women year after year after year, what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest challenge? Always, I don't have time for what's important. So that's when I got on this hook of time poverty and how can I solve for time poverty? And so that particular organization really focuses on women and helping them step into their power. We support a lot of other organizations, Cancer, Hope Rises, Go Red, American Heart Association, do fun things like that. But it's a great organization. Proud to be part of it.
Yeah, but that's amazing. And that has to be such a moment of self-care for you to be able to fill your cup and dedicate certain time in your day to something that's giving you so much joy, but also giving others so much.
Absolutely.
And so you also wrote a book. So what is one story or an insight that has really resonated with you and with other women today from this book?
There are so many stories. I'm a storyteller. The book is filled with stories and little exercises. But I think what happened when I was writing the book midway through, I had a speaking opportunity at World Trade Bank, and I flew to Washington. It was the morning, and I was looking at my speech and practicing and just enjoying a quiet cup of coffee. My front tooth fell out, literally. My front tooth. And all of a sudden, I started to freak out like, oh my God, how am I going to get up in front of hundreds of people without a front tooth? This is crazy. So then I got the idea, I'm going to super glue it back in, no problem. Well, of course, that didn't work. And of course, I couldn't find a dentist. And it ended up to be that I didn't have a front tooth until I ended up coming back to Palm Beach and actually getting one surgically. But I can remember that day so well, and the fear and the embarrassment. But when I got up on stage, I just looked around and I realized everybody around me was people. They were people too. And so I looked at everybody and said, you think you've had a bad day. I lost my front tooth. So bear with me. I can hardly talk. I whistle a little bit. I'm slurring. I've got a little bit of a rasp, but hey, you know what? I'm here because I wanted
Yeah.
to be here, and you're important. So that was a story that reminded me that everything doesn't have to be perfect. It can be really messed up, and that's okay.
Yeah, but you can get through it too. And like finding
Exactly.
that strength within and knowing, I think resonating that other people are human too, which it sounds like such a simple thing to be like, well, duh, of course, everybody, all the other people are human, but everybody has stuff going on that you're not seeing behind the scenes or behind their smile. So how do you know, what everybody else is going through in a day-to-day basis? Like they're struggling with something probably completely different or worse or lighter than you. It just, you never know.
So true. So very true.
And so, what is one thing now after writing the book and becoming a speaker and really an expert in this field? What is one thing that you will no longer do in the name of productivity?
Waste my time. I've learned that there are low value activities and also low value people that just bring me down. And so I have gotten used to, I have an aunt who's very old and she's very cranky and she's kind of mean to me on the phone. And yet I call her all the time. And one day I just said, look, Aunt, I'd love to keep in touch with you, but if you're going to be mean, and you're going to be nasty to me on the phone, I can't do this anymore. So moving forward, either we have a nice, pleasant talk or we don't talk. Up to you. What do you want to do? We started having great conversations. And so I think it's knowing that you have the power to make so much change in your life just by focusing on what's important and asking for it. People are happy to make you happy.
I mean, that makes complete sense. And, it's really owning yourself and your time and your value. And that's so important too. What's one daily habit?
Intentionality.
Yes, intentionality. Yes,
Intentionality.
that's exactly what I mean. We should be looking at so many different parts of not just our day, but ourselves with that intentionality to really be able to be successful, is what I would think.
Yeah, for sure.
What is one daily habit that helps you stay aligned?
I don't look at email on a regular basis. I also tell other people if they're writing an email that's kind of cover your butt oriented, I'll write them back politely and say, I trust you and you didn't need to send me this email. And I'm really trying to cut down on emails and just get things that are really important. And I do that all the time. So, I think, just getting rid of these things that aren't important, like looking at email. The average person looks at email 69 times a day. Stop, start, stop, start. We don't need to be doing that.
I'm probably one of those people, so I completely understand. It is not just addicting; it's just hard because when you want to not miss anything, and it's like the FOMO that you were talking about when it comes to being successful. Like you don't want to miss
Here's the
anything or be on top.
reality. When you think about email and you think about people around you, they will be perfectly happy if you respond to them within one business day. So
Yeah,
what would happen? Instead of looking at email 20 times in the morning, you just looked at it once. You made it through half of them. Then later in the day, you made it through the other half. You'd still do the right thing, but yet you wouldn't be switching tasks, stopping and starting, stopping and starting. And the problem with, multiple things at one time is that we pay a switching tax and it takes us a long time to get back into the mindset that we had when we're focused. So if you can eliminate that distraction, that moving from one thing to another, it really works out well in terms of productivity.
yeah. And I would think I had a friend once who she was a nurse by trade. That's what she went to school for. And then she pivoted her entire career and went into ad tech. sales, which is completely different. And I remember her saying, she's like, I was sitting in a meeting and they're like, this is of the utmost importance. Like, this is an emergency. We're going to have to stay late. We need to work on this deck. And she's like, this isn't an emergency. I've literally worked on people where I am literally saving their lives, keeping them literally breathing. That's an emergency. The PowerPoint deck you're making, not an emergency. So everybody just needs to take a breath. And I've always kept that with me because I'm like, but you're right. We're trained to be like in our sector of the industry, like these are emergencies. This is like so important. And it's not dire. Like people are literally fighting for their lives. That's dire. Everything's going to be fine if it's an hour later that you look at this and like that you put this together. Everything's going to be fine.
Like, don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
And whenever I get lost or stressed out, I'm a cat lover. I love my fur baby. I love my son, but I adore my fur baby.
Same.
And whenever I'm feeling a little unfocused, I'll just walk up to him and start scratching his back. And he'll start purring and making this intense, loud meow, this purr, this hum. And I think to myself, this was 2 minutes and look at how happy I made his day. And it just reminds me that, we have so many choices during the day, and so many small little things are just so meaningful and they change everything. So, we've got to stop sweating the small stuff and focusing on what's important.
No, and I think you're so right on that. And I'd like to wrap this up. I ask one question that I ask all of my guests, but if you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Act with intention. You want to succeed. You want to be successful, but focus on the things that are important. Don't try to do it all because you will miserably fail. Pick what's important. And I didn't know how to do that when I was younger. I tried to do it all. And consequently, I was on that hamster wheel round and round and round and round. And it works when you're young for a little bit. And then all of a sudden it doesn't work and it gets really old.
No, I believe that. I mean, this was just so helpful. I think that especially for those of us who are either trying to break out of the hustle culture or, are in it and really needing to hear from someone else that how important it is to maximize our time, but with intention and, make time for the things that are going to give us joy and energy and, healing perspectives. I think that's so important.
Yeah. And, you asked about the one thing I'd like people to walk away with. And I think it's that these are micro steps. Subtracting is a micro step. Happiness rituals is a micro step. Saying yes or no according to your values. These aren't big, huge, complicated processes. They're easy. And if you just continuously do one at a time, it just makes everything better and life more doable. I am so much happier, so much healthier, so much more love in my life when I let myself do this. And when I get miserable and when I get frustrated and when I get exhausted and stressed, it's because I'm a busyness addict and I got away from it. So then I lean into the process all over again.
I love that though. Well, Peggy, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this really important topic for everybody. Can you tell everybody where they can find you, your website, the book, all of the things?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to my website, which is peggysullivanspeaker.com. You can go to my LinkedIn profile, the same, Peggy Sullivan Speaker, or I always make time to meet new people. You can also reach out to me via email, which is peggy@peggysullivanspeaker.com. And I love helping other people and meeting new peeps. So go ahead, reach out. The world isn't so big after all.
I love that. And everyone, make sure to check out Peggy, check out the website, check out the book, The Nonprofit, and check out a little time for yourself. I think That will be the most important thing we got from today. Thank you again, Peggy, for being here. Really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome.